What a game. I mean, what a full day of football, y'all. Bunch of interesting stuff happened in the Florida game. Other teams around the country having really close, maybe shocking scores, including some of Florida's biggest remaining opponents. I mean, specifically, our next two opponents. You had Georgia upset Texas. I thought Georgia would win. And, I mean, they really dominated that whole game. But Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions. Hey, Gators are coming. And we played Texas right after Georgia. And Texas struggled all night on offense. Maybe that upset is still available. LSU dominated Arkansas. Ole Miss didn't play. FSU lost to Duke on Friday night. I told everybody last week, leave Billy alone. Give him time. Hey, maybe you were cooking. Maybe you were cooking. Cannot lie. But in other news, for everybody that betted on it or just kind of used their brains thinking about it, Billy Napier wasn't the first coach fired, head coach, I should say, wasn't the first head coach fired this season. That goes to East Carolina's Mike Houston after a 3-4 start for East Carolina. So that's very interesting because betting odds really said it would be Billy Napier. Caden, the man, 614. I've got a few things to say. Hey, go for it, man. We got time, all the time in the world, man. We have a bye week this week, too. So there's no game preview for this show. We do have some mid-season superlatives. 7 games, but it's the mid-season bye week. The one before Georgia we always have. So I count it as mid-season. Truly where if we're going to turn the tides of this season, it's going to be now. I really hope we beat Georgia and Texas. The media will go wild. They really would. And you know who else would go wild? Florida fans. I mean, I'm probably going to that Georgia game over in Duval County in Jacksonville, Florida. I might do a live post-game show from Georgia. I mean, from Jacksonville. Caden, the man, can I join the show? Caden, this isn't a call-in show. I personally don't know how to do that yet. I have not been taught how to use StreamYard. I mean, what are you in the... What do you have to say first? Like, you can type it in the comments. Because I'll wait to get really fully into gear here. Because, hey, this is all about the fan engagement. That's why I like doing this. Yeah, I did mean that. Save Billy at all costs, please. I mean, hey, Billy's a nice guy. We did discuss it a little bit last week on what he can do to be saved. Billy needs another year. Now, to let you guys know, this is a Georgia fan talking. I mean, his QB did throw 3 interceptions this weekend, yesterday. Oh, I've got things to talk about Georgia. Well, how about this? Next week's show, I'll try to get you on here, okay? You can see my Twitter right here. Follow me on Twitter, message me, and I'll see what I can do. Because we'll do our predictions next weekend, next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern. So if you want to come on the show, I'm perfectly happy with that. I'm hoping to get this man Tyler on here as well. Have that Tyler and Tyler show because he's a Georgia fan. That Florida-Georgia rivalry I think it'd be pretty fun. Could be pretty entertaining. Maybe get into a bit of a debate. Oh, man. We got Steve here saying Florida needs to go get Cignetti from Indiana. One big problem about Cignetti, don't really know about recruiting. Like, he's obviously brought talent into Indiana. Got Curtis Rourke from Ohio. Brought a bunch of players from James Madison to Indiana. So it's like, maybe he's really good with the portal. Like, maybe he can get talent, but can he get enough to the SEC? But let's start talking about this Florida game, Florida-Kentucky. The Gators win it. Oh. Florida wins it 48-20. Really dominated Kentucky. Kentucky kind of made it close off of some really weird plays. Like, the way Kentucky kind of kept the scoreboard close is how they always would versus Florida. Besides last year, where Ray Davis just went crazy over us. The year before that, in 2022, it was a pick six from Anthony Richardson, and then Florida just struggled. Florida was up 16-7 in that game. 2021, it was a blocked field goal for a touchdown, and then they ended up winning by 7. 2018, it was just a gritty game. Bill Mullins' like first big game at Florida. So normally Kentucky doing that, it's still like they could win, but they just couldn't keep up with DJ Lagway. George, after we beat Georgia, I will stop by Uncle Lou's channel. Man, I would want to be on that channel if we beat Georgia. Anybody that would do anything to mess up our team right now is insane. You better check with DJ Lagway before you do anything. But, I mean, Florida really did just dominate this game. Outside, they had a kick return. I mean, Berrien Brown is insane. That kick return, I don't know how he didn't step out of bounds. He was tight roping that sideline half the way to the end zone. Jackson Johnson, again, although I kind of do work at a rival of Publix, but tell your friends, family, and cashiers at Publix about the magic that Tyler is bringing to the Florida Gators Live every week at the Florida Voice of College Football. Of course, guys. Just do it, man. Like, subscribe. Follow me on X at TWIForGator with a 0 on the O. Don't know why someone has the O already, but doesn't let me do it. But I digress. They had a flea flicker play that resulted in a touchdown. I mean, I feel like I haven't seen someone run a flea flicker against us, and I don't even know, man. It feels like something that Georgia would do against us on like an early play of the game to get an early score. But I can't remember last time someone ran a flea flicker on us and got a big touchdown like that. But, tell the rivals of Publix about what Tyler is doing at the Florida at the Voice of College Football. There we go. Tell them the Walmart. Walmart came clutch for me this weekend. The tailgate had a little mishap. Bang. Easy peasy. Not sponsored. But started the game. Electric start. Lagway. 40-yard pass to Trey Wilson. Lagway did panic a bit on this throw. He did have an open pocket. If Lagway sets his feet on this throw, that could be a touchdown, which would have been the difference between 3 and 7 points. But it was still a fun throw. Then Kentucky played really good red zone defense. They kind of just zoned out. They covered their man. I would say our scheming, we kind of ran into the wrong side when we did run the ball early in the game. especially on that red zone drive. We ran into where Kentucky had most of their defenders. Our motions early on did not work at all. The third down on the goal, or first down, I think it was. First and goal, yeah, Jaden Ball run for no gain. We motioned DK, which just gave us one less blocker, and then they just ate ball up. Then Lagway took a sack, and that third down incompletion, I was rewatching the game because I was at the game live. You don't see everything live, but I was at the game. I mean, I was rewatching it, and that I couldn't tell if that would have been a touchdown because the ball was tipped. I couldn't tell if it would have been touchdown or picked. He was on the move a bit. He had Badger at the goal line. Don't know. Couldn't tell the leverage that the Kentucky player had because the camera angle wasn't there. So, like, if he had the momentum, it could have been picked. If he didn't, that could have been a touchdown. So, I would say, be happy with the 3 points. Could have been worse. Then we kick off to Kentucky up 3-0. They get a nice run on a 2nd and 7. If I remember correctly, Shamar James got out of position. They ran to where we didn't have the many defenders. Shamar made a little bit of a bad play there, gave him enough room. And then 2-yard run, incomplete pass by Brock Vandergrift, and then a deflection by George Gums, the Northern Illinois transfer. George Gums has been so good for this team this year. I don't think anybody really expected from him. I think we kind of just expected him maybe by his senior year or in a year or two. Then he might get some playing time. But he's really developed insanely well from a person who was a wide receiver. What George is saying here, see, it looks like every single player that we got from the transfer portal is turning out to be real studs. A lot of them are. And it's also the team buy-in and younger players stepping up. Daniel Miller, T-Will. What's up, Miller? But we get 1 first down. Then we have to punt. There was a play. So on the third down, it was a 3rd and 6. Lagway checks down to Arliss Boardingham about 4 yards. About 4 yards or so, or got about 4 yards. The play before, he had an overthrow to DK, a tough throw, and missed it, obviously. Overthrew it to DK when he had Badger wide open on the drag route, the same route they hit Boardingham for. They say later in the game, the commentators did, that Lagway loves to throw that deep in route, the cross route. We see it there. Misses it to DK. But, it's just something, you want to see Lagway get better at. Not sticking to one read to his favorite route, because sometimes you got to look for that check down, especially to a guy like Elijah Badger, who is elite with the ball in his hands, especially against a hurt Kentucky secondary. George, I like the way we are building from recruiting with just a few transfers each year. I think we are finally developing. I'll get to it later on, what I think. But I do see some development and transfers fitting in nicely. So then we do have to punt. Aiden Childs, was it Aaron Childs? Childs was on the field for this second defensive drive. Kentucky gets a nice, 8-yard run. And then they get the first down. But then this is really where the game started to change hands. Or I feel like really where I started to believe, okay, Florida's going to win this game. They get a 5-yard run, then a 4-yard run, just short. Then on 3rd and 1, you hear the crowd getting into it. False start. And then another incompletion from Brock Vandergrift. I got some friends to come out to this game, probably their first big Florida game. Like they were. I know one of them was at Sanford. The other one, it was his second game, and he couldn't even remember the first one he went to. It was pretty small, like Vanderbilt or something. That we were texting the game. We were in different spots on the stadium, but they were texting. They were in disbelief at how crazy this place went. So I was at the Mississippi State game with one of them and went to an Ole Miss game with them as well, whole state tour. And it was a miles ahead of those two places' atmospheres. Now, the level of opponent, I mean, Mississippi State hosting us, we were both 1-2 at the time, and then Ole Miss was just hosting Georgia Southern. But it was a nuts environment. Obviously, Kentucky, they're a pretty disciplined team, but they did make some mistakes on the penalty wise. We get the ball back. Lagway gets some nice runs. He gets a first down running. And then he had a 22-yard run. You noticed, you could tell throughout the game, they were so worried early on about the Lagway run that they weren't worried enough, so their safeties were playing deeper back. Which we'll see they change up later in the game. Which if you watch the game, you know how bad it comes to bite them. We end up getting a 33-yard field goal. This was interesting because I remember we got to, I think, like a 3rd and 1, and they ruled him short. They didn't review it. I thought he got it. Maybe not. But we kicked the field goal. Kentucky gets the ball. They go 4 plays, they get a 45-yard touchdown pass from Vandergrift to Bering and Brown. It's a flea flicker. I mean, you'd love to not fall for it. Don't know how much they practice looking for flea flickers. It's kind of a rare play to see. So I'm not going to really hold it on the defense that much, especially when they played an all-round good game. Next drive, 3 incompletions. You could tell the medium, the short-range game early on wasn't really working. And that does worry me a little bit. I think we need to hammer into Lagway a bit to look more for a check down, especially against Georgia. Because Georgia has those elite athletes that maybe Kentucky, especially missing their number one corner, couldn't guard. Like Georgia will be able to guard them. And then we start seeing the defensive line's physicality on this next drive for Kentucky. They get a 9 yards, and then 3rd and 1, we get a huge stop. We haven't seen Florida make these short yardage stops in a long time. Like the last time people say Florida had a good defense, which I agree would have been 2019. But that was also more of a finesse style defense, elite pass rushers. Interior was solid and good corners and linebackers. But they weren't really short yardage stoppers. We really saw the big bodies like Desmond Watson, Cam Jackson, and Mekhi Burrow finally have that impact that you would expect someone of their size to have. So I was so excited to see that. And you know what? George just brought up a really fantastic point, everyone. Alabama beat Georgia. Vanderbilt beat Alabama. Therefore, we can beat Georgia. We beat Kentucky by 28. Vanderbilt beat Kentucky by 7. Hey, let's not go crazy. Just saying all things are possible in football. Yes, they are. What happened right there? Then get the ball back. You have a penalty on Kentucky. Not a penalty on Kentucky. You then have the first or second deep ball from DJ Lagway. 50 yards to Elijah Badger. One of the many. I was rewatching the game. They were lining up in cover 3 defense. And we only had one deep route. And we were still It was such perfect throws, great routes on corners and outs that we were getting the receiver open enough, and Lagway was throwing it open to them. 3-play touchdown drive. Gators go up 13-6 after a Jaden Ball run, his first of the game. Beck has been turnover prone. If we can force him to do so in Jacksonville, maybe we can make it weird. Yeah, I agree with Miller here. We've seen it the entire season, really, from Beck. Inconsistencies. He threw 50-plus times against Alabama, or not 50-plus, like something like that, against Bama and Mississippi State, where he was getting a ton of yards, some scores, but it also just feels inconsistent. So maybe we can get some pressure on him. We didn't really get much pressure on Kentucky. We did have a sack. I know we had 1 sack from TJ Searcy. Not sure about the rest of the team, though. But maybe we can. The next drive, 4 plays. Brock Vandergrift throws his first interception to Jaquez Bridges. It was a bit honestly, you can't really blame Brock that much for this one. It hit the receiver in the hands. It was good coverage. Like, maybe we could force it incomplete. A good receiver catches that ball, though. It should not be picked, but it was. Jaquez Bridges, who ends up playing a fantastic game, having 10 tackles and the interception. Later in the game, makes a great open field tackle. But great play by Bridges. But then 2 plays later, miscommunication, bad throw. I don't know what happened here. DJ Lagway throws a horrendous interception to Kristen Story of Kentucky. He gets a 63-yard return on it. Kentucky's at the 11-yard line. Now it's looking like, okay, this is how this game always goes. We've said it many times already so far. Kentucky's going to win it. No, they don't. They just need to get to the 1-yard line for a first down conversion. They get to 3rd and 2. 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2. Short. They bring Gavin Wimstad in, too, for get short on 3rd down, I'm pretty sure. He was on 2nd down. Okay. They run it to Demi Sumo, Carnaby. Back-to-back times. We get the stuff. I said it earlier. That's where the game started to change. When we started getting short yard stops. We haven't done it. But we actually did it. Okay. But you know what? Now we have 98 yards. Kentucky still in a good position. Only down 7 points. Maybe they get a safety here. And it's a 5-point game. First play after that, Jaden Ball, 27-yard run. The next play, DJ Lagway, 58-yard pass to Elijah Badger. 2 plays later, Jaden Ball runs it into the end zone for a 2nd touchdown of the game. Gators go up 20-6. Maybe it's different. Maybe it's different. Next drive, 2 plays. Brock Vandergrift throws another interception. This was a pretty bad one to Devin Moore. He returns it to the inch line, man. Almost a touchdown. We're at the 1-yard line. You know what? Who cares? Devin Moore runs it in for his 3rd touchdown of the game. It was going crazy in the swamp. This game was over. I thought it was over. But kickoff. Barry Brown returns it 99 yards. Just before halftime. 14-point game now. Kentucky gets the ball to start the second half. Now this is how Kentucky makes it a close game again to try to make us make the mistake. Well, they come out of half. 12 play, 75-yard drive. Touchdown Kentucky. Okay. Yep. 7-point game now. Game's over. Kentucky's going to win. Nope. 8 plays, 77 yards. DJ Lagway. Oh my goodness, DJ Lagway. Where's this going here? DJ Lagway with a 44-yard touchdown pass to Chimere Dike. And then we run it in with Jaden Ball for Ball's 4th touchdown run of the game. The freshman had no scores in his career coming into this game. True freshman starting against an elite defense in Kentucky. The third statistically best defense in the country. Held Georgia to 13, held Ole Miss to 17. They were holding everybody and their mothers to nothing offensively. Even that South Carolina game, South Carolina was doing it all on the defensive end and like a couple busted plays. But Florida gashing the ball up, throwing it all over them. 34 points, 14-point lead. Of course, we stopped Kentucky again. Another touchdown, Gators. Jaden Ball, after a 40-yard pass from DJ Lagway. I remember I was sitting with my dad. We're up 34-20, and it's like, oh, well, we're just going to run it out now. We're going to keep it close enough to where Kentucky can maybe, if they get a touchdown, make a play. But then, nope, on 3rd and 8, we let DJ Lagway air it out to Badger for 40 yards to the 17-yard line. Hand it off to Jaden Ball, gets down to the 1. Hand it off to Jaden Ball again. Touchdown, Gators. Badgers' 5th touchdown of the game. That place was an insane asylum. That might not even have been the peak. The next drive, Jason Marshall gets hurt earlier in the game, so we have to go deeper into the bench. Former 5-star corner, went to Colorado, transfers to Florida as a walk-on, not on scholarship. Cormani McClain gets a pick 6 off a curl route. You could see his reach on it. The entire team, Billy Napier gave them permission to celebrate with Cormani. Says for a guy like Cormani, you see him earn it, and it just makes everyone happy. Makes him happy. And oh my goodness, that's really, you had DJ Lagway go for 300 total yards, have 5 40-plus yard passes. But the biggest takeaway from Twitter on this game was Cormani McClain getting a pick 6. That's how crazy that was. He also, on the next drive, gets a great pass deflection. You could see why Cormani was a 5-star corner. That reach of his is elite. Then we kind of just end the game. You see Aiden Warner come in, the Yale transfer. He completes a pass to Taylor Spirito. Cam Carroll gets in the game. I thought he wasn't going to play. I don't think he's recovered from his injury or like to the point where he can actually play in the SEC. But he gets to play. That's pretty cool. Alrighty, we got Hal Henderson. Can we at least be competitive with Georgia? Got Georgia responding to it. I think we will beat Georgia. Hal saying thinks we can win 7 games. Possible. Maybe I'm biased. Georgia will be missing their starting free safety, who's a senior, I believe, and their starting star, who is a former 5-star, he's a sophomore. Can DJ Lagway torch him over the top with their free safety out? We need to get out to a good start. Probably need to lead at halftime. If we beat Georgia, we can beat Texas. Not here to spread the "we are back" campaign. But it's nice to be able to talk about it. Now we're cooking here with George. We can win every game on our schedule and win the SEC championship. Hey, Florida's not eliminated from the playoffs. Is he out the whole game or just the first half? The two players for Georgia are both out for the first half. Jonel Aguero and I think it's Rod is something. I can't remember his first last name. They're both out for the first half. We'll get more into that game. DJ expects to win every game. You know he does. He expected to win that Tennessee game. Didn't. Expect him to beat Miami. Expect him to beat A&M. Jeremy Carpenter. DJ Lagway is the man. Yes, he is. He is indeed the man. Let's get into some stats here. Kentucky put their backup QB in at the end of the game. They went through the pick six to Cormani. Cutler Boley. 0 for 6. 1 interception. With that interception being a pick six. 0.1 QBR. I didn't know it could even get that bad. But DJ Lagway, 7 of 14, 259 yards. Average 34.7 yards per completion. 7 completions for 259 yards. That's unbelievable against this Kentucky defense. Imagine you get him ready to make some checkdowns too. He only needed to complete 7 passes. He didn't even need to complete 7. He needed to complete like 4 in this game. Just insane. He also had 10 carries for 46 yards. Had a nice 22-yard carry. Some other good scrambles. Pretty good stuff for Lagway. Got sacked. What did we average? 40 yards a pass or something. Per completion, I believe it was 37.4. Pretty elite stuff right there. You had Jaden Ball go for 22 carries, 106 yards, 5 touchdowns. 5 touchdowns. Did I say 5? I think I might have said 4. I said 5. I meant 5. Long of 27. He needs to split snaps with Montreal. I said after last week that Montreal proved why he's the starter. This week, Ball proved why he needs good snaps, a good amount of snaps. 37.4. Okay, I may have been switching the 4 and 7 up. Said 2 weeks ago, Mertz's game matched up against Tennessee, but Lagway's game was best suited for Kentucky. Kentucky missing. I think if you let Lagway play that whole Tennessee game out, it goes differently. That first half, I feel like the line was playing better against Tennessee as well. But I would say Tennessee does have higher elite players. Kentucky maybe is a better average, or they're about the same, but Tennessee has a higher player like James Pierce. V-Lee getting out, that'll hurt them on that linebacker core. Jacoby Jackson, good game too. 9 carries, 44 yards. That's a 4.9 yards average. That's really solid for an RB3. Especially use a JUCO transfer. Didn't really expect much out of him. So I'll give him that. Hard runner. These receiving yards. Elijah Badger. He was the king of being just close to touchdowns. 3 catches, 148 yards. That's just insane. DK, 2 catches, 67 yards. Trey Wilson, 1 catch, 40 yards. And Arlie Sportingham, 1 catch for 4 yards. Spirito had 1 catch for 20. That was from Warner. I mean, Badger is just a really great player. There's nothing much to say about it. I mean, elite route running, great speed. He's great with the ball in his hands. This receiver room is going to be better with Lagway. Maybe it's going to be less volume, more quality, less quantity. That's the way to put it. That's how this receiver room is now going to be. Which may hurt some guys like a Trey Wilson. I mean, he's still got a catch for 40 yards. Right here with George. We have so many great receivers. I don't know off the top of my head. We probably have one of the best wide receiver rooms in the SEC. I think outside of Ryan Williams, I think you'd start Badger at Alabama. Besides him. Maybe even DK. I mean, when you think of those best receiving rooms, like outside of Ohio State, Badger would be starting anywhere in the country. DK, if he's your worst starting receiver, and that's not calling him bad at all, because I love him. I think he's a great receiver, great punt returner, excellent hands, great speed. If he's your worst starting wide receiver, you are set. Trey Wilson, whether you use him a lot with the ball or not, he's going to be the guy that distracts defenses. He's the one you have to tell your defense, okay, watch out for that end around. Watch out for him out the backfield. We saw it against Georgia last year on the first drive with slants. He got the touchdown. Made me think, oh my God, we're going to have a good game with Georgia. We didn't, but I started believing. I like our tight end room still. I think Boardingham isn't as good as I want him to be. I think Hayden Hansen is better than anybody could have expected coming out of high school. He was ranked in 1,500s as a recruit. Random tight end. Everyone's like, why are we bringing this kid here? Now he's a starter, great run blocker. Good. It's so weird to watch him. He looks like a physical runner. I'll put it that way. Because I don't want to do too much there. But then on defense, Traquez Bridges, I said it earlier, 10 tackles and the interception. Really good from him. Jack Pyburn, 8 tackles. Rob, did we even attempt a slant this game? Not off the top of my head. I know Miami game, he had some slants. But no. Lots of things. I think Billy also might be trying to save some stuff for Georgia. Yep. I mean, we will discuss it a bit more when we get to that Georgia game next Sunday. But yeah, I mean, you got to give thanks to the coaches. Go. Jack Pyburn really has turned it around a lot, man. Talk about him later. But then you had Devin Moore, 7 tackles and the interception. Shamar James, 7 tackles. Jaden Robinson. This kid continues to impress. I mean, I call him kid when he's the same age as me. But that's how football works. He's all over the field on that linebacker room. He can play interior. He can play off the ball. He can play on the line. Great tackler. Had a nice tackle in open space on Demi. Suma. Don't need to try to pronounce his name anymore. But great. He's had some good pass rush. And really, it's just everything from him. It's been really good. Last year, we saw him a lot in the Arkansas game. Lost that one in OT, gave up a ton of points. We don't really want to talk about it. But you could see Robinson doing a lot of the right things. He was just really small. Saw him got trucked by KJ Jefferson. He still made the tackle. Jefferson maybe got an extra yard because he trucked him. but still made the tackle. And I think Robinson, there was a real chance he could have got lost in this defensive linebacker room, with guys like Aiden Childs and Miles Graham coming in, Shamar James already on there, and Grayson Pup Howard. But he's really earned himself a spot here. Talking about Pup, he had 4 tackles, including half a TFL, and Aaron Gates had a good pass deflection at the end of the game. Aaron Gates, the star position for Florida. After last week against Tennessee, you had everybody saying, Sharif Denson is legit. This kid is the future. After this game, same position, you have everybody saying Aaron Gates is legit. He is the future. We have some tough calls to make on whether to start Gates, Denson. Could we find a way to play both of them on the field? That's a thing you love to have. Something I don't think many of us expected to be a concern or issue for Florida this year. I already talked about George Gums being really way above expectations. So all the credit to him. Really worked for it. Miles Graham played a ton this game. Maybe not a ton. I don't know the exact snap count, but for our linebacker room, he got more snaps than Derek Wingo, if I'm not mistaken. Don't know if Wingo's hurt or benched. Love Wingo, has been a great player for this university, or a great person for this football team. He's not the best player for us. Great locker room guy for us, and it's really helping mentor these young linebackers. Talked about Searcy having the sack. Cormani with the pick 6. LJ McCray, he got a pretty bad roughing the passer penalty. I don't think it was roughing. I think it was a little bit of a sell job. A little bit of an acting. Give him that Oscar. But he got pass rush on like 3 straight plays where he didn't get a sack. But he got that roughing call, which was incomplete on the pass. The next play, he also gets pressure. It's incomplete. Or the play before, it might have been. And then there was another play on that drive where he gets pressure, not close to making a sack, but he forces a quarterback out of the pocket, and it's incomplete. Really good game from the 5-star LJ McCray. I think it's time to... Jason Marshall's injury. Let's talk about that real quick. Gotta sneeze. Excuse me. But Jason Marshall's injury is pretty brutal for this team. I know everyone's going to be hyping up Cormani. But Cormani is still pretty small. Saw that reach, though. Still could be a really good corner. I still would want to wait 1 year before we actually turn this corner to Cormani. But maybe he could. But we still have Dijon Johnson and Devin Moore. Devin Moore was our second highest graded player in that game, according to PFF, with Cormani in his short time being way a 90-something grade, so way above everybody else. Rob, I'm going to say something about this. McCray greater than Boone, Sapp, and Searcy. I'd say Searcy's better in run defense. Sapp is a better pass rusher. I really like Sapp. I think Sapp is still a really good player, especially with that pass rush. Boone, I'm not really going to argue on. I'm not going to hate on Boone. He's dealt with some injuries here, so it's kind of sad. Maybe if he doesn't get injured last year and takes that step like we thought, he'd be way ahead of where he is now. God bless LJ McCray. God bless all these players, man. But now it's time to get into the top 5, bottom 5 from this game. Did it last week. Had a bunch of fun with it. I'm going to do it again this week. Bit more creative than just players. Last week we started with the 5th on the bottom. So this week we'll start with the 5th on the top. At number 5 on the top 5, we have the involvement and buy-in from everybody. When Cormani got that pick 6, he talked about it earlier. Billy gave permission for everybody to go celebrate with him. Cormani jumped into the crowd, onto the gate, whatever. Not really into the crowd, you know what I mean, though. But it was so electric and fun to see all that. It really puts a smile on your face to see a guy who maybe had some weird stuff happen at Colorado. Not going to get into that because I don't know the full story there. But someone who could be on his last legs of making it to the NFL and as a football player. So it's really good to see him get that. Said he worked really hard for it. You just see the buy-in from the team. I mean, most teams in our position are giving up, and a team like Kentucky would easily beat them. Maybe not easily, but they'd beat them to the point where it's like you just tell this team is wore out, not looking good. But that's just not this team. Billy is such a great connection with these players. It's something we really haven't seen in a while at UF. He really cares about them. It's nice to see him start getting active about it. I mean, I hope it means he really cares about this job. I mean, I assume he does. I mean, who wouldn't want to be a coach at the University of Florida? I would. Voice crack, but I would. So it's nice to see the involvement from everybody and the excitement from everybody. And maybe the team can turn it around. So the bottom 5 was pretty tough to do. Got a bit nitpicky here because it was such a great game from offense and defense. And some of the special teams. But on the bottom 5, I'd go with maybe the play calling. I mean, it's not necessarily the play calling was bad. I think there was some maybe adjustments they could have made on early in the game, as I was saying. We were running to the short side where they had a bunch of defenders. Both our field goals probably were results of that exactly. Could have been the difference between 6 and 14 points there. But maybe that's a DJ mistake right there. Maybe it's coaching telling them to run that way. Maybe it's just Kentucky being that third best defense going into that game. Again, these are very nitpicky, so you don't really need to come defending them that much. Number 4, not something I expected to be on the top 5. I'm on the bottom 5 last week. The entire offensive line not making many mistakes, really. Most of the time that our runs didn't work, it was because, again, of numbers. Very rarely did we see us missing blocking assignments, like maybe 1 or 2 times. DJ didn't face too much pressure. That was more just his freshman goo, maybe making it a bit weirder. But I really liked Jake Slaughter. He's been a really good pass blocker this year. His run blocking was elite in this game. Austin Barber's run blocking was really good in this game too. Harris gave up a play, but he played overall pretty good. Damian George. One of our touchdowns, you see him go out and get a pancake on a player at the 2-yard line, 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage. It's nice seeing him being able to get outside there with his frame and making those pancakes when speed's always been like his biggest question. So the O-line, got to tip that. Oh, Brandon Crenshaw Davis. How could I forget the transfer from San Diego State? Our first touchdown was a really impressive play by Jaden Ball and Brandon Crenshaw. He's carrying a defender, and you have Crenshaw pushing him up there. They get into the end zone. They fall down because the tackler finally brings him down in the end zone. And Crenshaw hits a celebration doing like a gator walk. If you haven't seen it, you need to go back and look for it. If you have ESPN Plus, you can go onto ESPN app and get the game on that first touchdown. It was a pretty funny celebration coming from an offensive lineman. And I just love to see it. And we got with George here, maybe having 2 offensive linemen is finally starting to work. This offensive line probably might be our best in the Napier era. Bottom 5, number 4. Again, we're getting nitpicky here. I was looking for anything. Kick returns is what I came across. Berrien Brown had that elite play. So both sides of the kick returning I'll talk about here. Berrien Brown had that elite kick return. He's had a kick return earlier in the year, I think. I know he had 1 or 2 last year. We all know he's an elite kick return artist. Damian George has an awesome last name. Okay, George, yeah. But, I mean, we should have tackled him, at least get him out of bounds. But gotta give it to Brown. But on our end, returning, I don't know, Jaden Ball had a couple returns. Nothing really special happened. He tripped, I think, on one of them. Just maybe we should just call fair catches. Also, with Ball being our starting running back, I'm not sure how much I liked him returning kicks right there. You had Badger also returning kicks. He returned the first one as well. It was all right. Nothing special. Again, being nitpicky here. But overall, it's kind of meh in a game where we had a lot of great. Number 3 in the top 5. Will Harris deserves a standing ovation for this DB room. I mean, goodness gracious, was the DB room. The DB play really good besides one play, the flea flicker. I mean, Jason Marshall locking up his man until he gets hurt. Jordan Castell didn't play horrible. He deserves applause for that. He did not play horrible. Man, my nose is itchy. But Cormani McLean comes in late in the game. Pick 6, pass deflection. We were really letting Kentucky make the mistakes themselves. Devin Moore had the pick. Bridges had an amazing game. One of the best tackles in open space that we've seen from a Florida defensive back in a long time on a 4th down near the end of the game. It just, as George is saying right here, makes me smile. Gives that thumbs up. It's nice seeing the DBs play really well. I saw Turner. I thought he was probably going to be out for the year looking off the injury he got against Miami. He might be back, which adds a lot of physicality to this defensive back room. Maybe we don't have that elite hitman right now, but Turner, if he can come back at that Georgia game especially, that would be really big for us. Because now instead of just letting them beat themselves, Turner can make those big plays to stop it from happening. Bottom 3, I'm not as big as a hater on this as most people are. But with how I'm nitpicking here, I will take into account how everybody else felt. The end of the half play calling. We just saw Kentucky get that kick return for a touchdown. We just saw that Kentucky get the kick return for a touchdown. They get ball, start second half, but Lagway's been elite. Let him throw it. Give him a chance. A minute and a half is a ton of time, especially to stop the clock stopping on first downs. Say we just run the clock out. Then Kentucky scores, makes a one-score game out of the third quarter. Personally, again, maybe someone in the comments wants to talk about it and maybe say why they think it was a worse idea. But the way I see it, your QB did throw an interception a little bit ago. This is the end of half. Kentucky got a little bit of momentum off that kick return. So that's why I kind of okay with just running it out. Maybe I would have liked to see us take a shot at least. But to me, it's not really the end of the world. Oh, man. These are just nitpicky, man. It was a really good game. Probably Napier's best game as a Gator. Yeah. Most complete game. Ironically, his 2 best games, this one and 2022 South Carolina, we gave up special teams touchdowns. Rob here explaining. Billy has been scared to go for it at the end of half ever since AR in his first year. Maybe it's a trend that goes back to Louisiana. Arizona State, maybe even. Clemson, maybe even. But number 2 on the top 5, a lot of fans want... Actually, I'm not going to get into that. Number 2 on the top 5, the physicality. Billy's Napier's teams have been built on this physicality. at Louisiana. That's why they were winning the Sun Belt and upsetting teams like top 10 Iowa State during the COVID season. But we haven't seen it at Florida much. And the games we win are the ones where we're the more physical teams. Got a Miami fan here in the chat saying us Kane fans love that Lagway is doing well. That means y'all are keeping G5 Billy longer. LMAO, keep him forever. Hey, lose Cam Moore next year, Catman. Barely winning games. Miami, okay, I don't want to say that. 3 straight games where I'm not saying officials made the wrong call, but there have been some really close calls that all go Miami's way. Bound to slip up somewhere. And what happens when you lose Cam Moore? Let's get back into the top 5 game. What am I doing? The physicality, the trenches, offensive line I already talked about were really good. The defensive line, the interior was shutting down Kentucky the entire time. Never even had a chance. Number 2 on the bottom 5. This isn't even something we really control. Injuries. I mean, Jason Marshall probably haven't done that yet, but probably one of our best defensive players, especially how he's been this year. Gets hurt. They had to pop it back in place, probably dislocated. I don't know how long he's going to be out. I project that he'd be out for the Georgia game, but I don't know for sure. Hope we can get him back. We didn't really lose anybody else this game. It's just that's probably our biggest loss outside of number 1 from this week. George here. I would love to make it to the playoffs and play Miami again. I'm all for it, George. Give us the in-state rematch. I'm 100% for it. Miami's have a tough game with Clemson. ACC, man. Get into that later. Number 1 on the top 5. So when I was making this top 5, I was trying to decide if I want to do individually, together, or what. But I decided to do them together so I could fit some other things onto that top 5. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody can guess at least part of it. It was the true freshmen. Both starting in the backfield, DJ Lagway and Jaden Ball. Lagway already has the record twice. Twice he has the record for most 40-yard passes in a game. 40-yard passes. 5 of them against Kentucky, a top 3 defense. How many times do I need to repeat this? It's just magical how good this guy is. The other one was Kyle Trask and Tim Tebow. And Tebow's was against Western Kentucky. That just shows how good DJ Lagway is. We got a little Rob saying he dislocated his shoulder. It was like sore for 6 days. Full range of motion after about a week and a half. So, yeah, Marshall's not going to be back for that. If it's a dislocated shoulder, Marshall will not be back for that Georgia game. Maybe we'll get him back by the time we start playing LSU. That's especially when we'll need that secondary. But let's get back to the true freshman. Jaden Ball, 5 touchdowns, 100 yards. Made some crucial plays. Most touchdowns in a game by a true freshman. He tied it with Trey Burton, who did it in 2010 against Kentucky. Trey Burton, future touchdown passer in the Super Bowl for the Eagles. Philly special. But Jaden Ball just showed that he's going to be a really good back, and especially behind Montrell for the rest of the season. It's going to be a dynamic duo. I think we definitely have it figured out what we need to do. Let's just hope Billy sticks with it. And then DJ Lagway, over 300 total yards. Ball took all his touchdowns. So, I mean, didn't get any of the touchdowns, but 5 passes of 40-plus yards, man. It's just insane. His deep ball accuracy, I'm telling you, if you put DJ Lagway on Tennessee, Tennessee is undefeated. I mean, there's so many teams that if you put Lagway on, would be in the top 10 right now. Might be one of the best true freshman QBs we've seen since Trevor Lawrence won the national championship. You see Dylan Raiola, really good, exponentially high future. But we saw him struggle against Indiana, throwing, 2 picks? They lost 56-7. Kurt Signetti. But saw him struggle against Indiana. Saw him struggle against Illinois. Lagway, we haven't really seen struggle when he's been a full-time starter. Like, he does need to get, like, into his groove a little bit. Like, as you saw, we didn't score a touchdown for our first, like, 4 drives. But then we got into our groove, and it was touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. Deep ball after deep ball after deep ball. I mean, he's just a different level, man. And this kid's going to get better. Once he develops that short game, man, he's just going to get better and better. Oh, man. Okay. Bottom 5. This was probably the easiest of the bottom 5 list that I could have done. Not necessarily this game. Why did it take us so long to figure out this team? Billy's in his 3rd season. It took 4 weeks, 4 games to figure out what this team is. Like, even not with Lagway and Mertz. I think Mertz is still a good player. We still beat Kentucky with Mertz, in my opinion. Don't beat him like this, but we still beat him with Mertz. But he talked about it after the Mississippi State game, and he said that he knows Pyburn needs more playing time. Why didn't you realize that earlier in the year? Actually, I might know why on that one, but still. Bridges ended up playing a really good game. The offensive line is just so much improved. The defensive line, what happened over that bye week that we didn't know before the season that makes this team look so much better? We should have beat Tennessee, who just knocked off a Bama. Like, sometimes this coach just doesn't make much sense. Man, let's move on from the top 5, bottom 5. We got George here. Florida State proved building through the portal does not work. Just a few each year, not half the team. I don't want to go on a tangent about Lane, but I see a similar path right there right now. Imagine, wait until they lose their next game. I have some projections if when that happens. Nobody wants a new coach on the team, I'd say so. But the fans, most of the people I talk to, they're not sold on Billy still being here next year. So make sure you like and subscribe to the channel and all of the other Voice of College Football channels out there. We have a lot of really good people. Mark at the Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers. Really good. He's done this for so long. I think you just need to like and subscribe to the channels, and maybe there's another channel you'll like where maybe you're not a fan of that team, but you will like the channel. You'll like the people on it, like some of the sponsors they have. We're trying to grow all of this so we can make it a much bigger thing, get it out to everybody, and give you better content, get more people on my channel so it's not just me. Got Rob. Think about it. If Mertz, Jackson, and Montrell didn't get hurt, you would not get that from Lagway, Badger, and Baugh. We'd get it from Badger. I think Montrell still would have had a really good game. I don't think Jackson was saying Badger was still just new to the system. That's why he wasn't the starter. Badger was in on the first or second was in early in that Miami game before Jackson was even hurt. But I mean, I think we still win this game as badly with Montrell. I mean, we proved it against Miami why he's a starter. But I mean, we love to see those big games from them. So next thing I want to start talking about, how much fight does Florida have left? So every team in their heads can tell themselves, okay, I can beat Georgia, I can beat Alabama, I can beat LSU, I can beat Ole Miss, I can beat FSU. But can we really? This is what I think I saw it in the preseason, the 12th or 11th best roster according to 247 Sports Talent Composite Rankings. Georgia and Bama, or Georgia and Texas are both in that top 5. Georgia's 1 or 2. Texas is in that top 5. LSU's in that top 7 area. Ole Miss has the number 1 transfer class. So maybe the team is bought in and they're giving it everything they got to keep Billy. How much does it matter? And how much will it end up being worth? If you're Billy, you're still maybe on a hotter seat than we've seen any Florida coach in my lifetime and in probably most of my viewers' lifetime. How much can he install that will to win into him? I mean, when you look at the quarterback, we have a 5-star QB. That's the best you can do out of high school. One of the most talented kids in the country. The RB room looks really good. How does the offensive line stand up to defensive lines with as much talent as Georgia and Texas and LSU and Ole Miss? Because, you know, they always say it's not the size of the dog in the fight. It's the heart, you know. But in college football, how true really is that? Outside of those, we never really see those Cinderella teams make it all the way. Or Cinderella players, like a Diego Pavia is at Vanderbilt. We saw TCU get all the way to the national championship and flopped. So we're probably more talented than that TCU team was, on paper at least. Fight or flight. Billy won a championship at Louisiana. Louisiana was also recruiting better than anybody at the Sun Belt level. You're seeing it now with Liberty in the CUSA, to where Liberty is putting so much more money into their program that it doesn't really matter how good your coaching staff is. They got an elite quarterback and a great offense, but does Florida still have a lot of fight left in them? Do they have the gas tank, the depth? I was considering putting depth on the list of bottom 5 because we did start giving up a little bit to Kentucky at the end of the game. Missing our 3rd-string defensive tackle in Jamari Lyons. Because do I think Mekhi Burrow or DeAndre Robinson can come in against Georgia, against Texas, and actually make an impact on that game like a Jamari Lyons could? Because we know Watson only has so many snaps. Jackson only can play so many snaps because of their size. So instead of splitting it 3 ways between 3 really good players, now you're going, because not just Burrow, who was playing the 3rd string with the injury, going to a 4th string with Robinson, a bit smaller. Robinson a bit smaller, not really as much as a true nose tackle. I think he's playing more because of the injury there right now than a Burrow is. So you get to a point, maybe it's a close game in that 2nd quarter and at halftime, but then you see Georgia start pounding with ETN or Blue for or Jarrett Gibson for Texas, Caden Durham for LSU. So it's just like, does that fight really have any value to it? Because any team can go in there and want to win. But can they? Offensive line. I mean, they've looked good. I'd say they looked good the past 3 weeks. But when they're playing those 5 stars like Mikael Williams and linebackers of like Smail Mondin at Georgia, can they still block those guys? Can they give the gaps for Montreal, for Jaden Ball? Because your running backs, as talented as they are, if you don't give them any space to run, you're not going to stop them. And your linebackers for Florida, as talented as they are, if you see Georgia just making gaps on our defensive line, ETN, we know how good ETN is running the ball. He's going to run through them. And you're going to get big chunk plays, 7, 8, 9 yards at a time. So as much as we've seen the improvement against these other teams, none of them are on the level of Georgia and Texas. But, I mean, we see George here saying, personally, I'm going to go insane if we fire another coach in 3 years. Billy needs to beat one of these teams that we're not projected to beat to keep his job. Just to get the 6 wins, he's going to have to win 2 of our last 5. FSU should be a win. Then he has to find a way to pull an upset. And I want to get into the Ole Miss game, which I have a lot of opinions about. This is an interesting thing, because this whole thing is about keeping Billy. Why do I ask this question? So can Billy save his job? I think we should give him an extension right now to show recruits he's not going anywhere soon. I know people have talked about maybe giving him an extension while reducing the buyout. I think that's an interesting little caveat right there. But do you really want to extend him right now? That could be a bad look on the program, too. Like, you're extending a coach that won 5, maybe 6, maybe. I mean, if the team wins 7 games, then I'd think you wait one. I mean, then maybe you give him this little extension. But what recruits are left? Florida is in the 30s, near 40s now in the recruiting rankings. So, it's just not a good look, in my opinion. But really, how much does that fight really matter? Let's get into some fun. Always love awards. I think you guys like awards, especially when you earn them. Let's give some mid-season superlatives. So, the first superlative we're going to go with, we're going to go maybe a pretty obvious one. Maybe I have the answers, but I want to see how the chat reacts to these. So we have best freshman. I know there's the obvious answer. That's who I've picked. You have players like Jaden Ball, DJ Lagway. Tank Hawkins has played a decent bit. LJ McCray has played a good bit. Aaron Childs and Miles Graham. Greg Smith played a little bit at the end of the Kentucky game. So who does everybody think the best freshman has been for this Florida team? I think there's really only 2 answers here. And even between those 2, there's one player that just sticks out. And with that being said, the superlative for best freshman at the midseason mark goes to DJ Lagway. I mean, he's just been insane, had the game where he just averaged over 37 yards per completion. Saw it against Samford, where he almost set the all-time Florida record for passing yards in a game. Saw him almost make the comeback and blow win against Tennessee. Ball, had he had a better start or more carries at the start of this season, could have had a good argument, but we had a little bit of playing with Trayon Webb, Jacoby Jackson getting snaps for him. So I think maybe by the end of this, no, I think by the end of the season, Lagway's gonna have it wrapped up. It was really the best chance that Ball had. I think Rob just trying to throw some love out there to Tank Hawkins. I think he deserves more playing time. Him and Adam Mizell. But it easily goes to DJ Lagway. Now, a fun one. Who is the most improved player on the team? So not including freshmen or transfers. Like Pup Howard was a freshman at South Carolina last year, and now he's a great linebacker at Florida. At that point, it'd probably be him. But he's not on here. My 3 options, I narrow it down to. Not in order. Caleb Banks, Damian George, Jack Pyburn. Had you have asked me this after the Texas A&M game, I would have answered probably Caleb Banks. I was at the Mississippi State game. We gave up a near touchdown drive based on some big runs from Mississippi State, where they got 2 chunk plays because one player didn't set the edge. We ended up getting a stop on downs, turnover on downs, because of a TFL from the same player. Ever since he's gotten those TFLs against Mississippi State, I went from calling him maybe one of the worst players I've seen in a Florida jersey, to one of the best players on the defense. And that's really why it's easy for me to pick Jack Pyburn. Maybe it's more hustle we've seen from him. Guess maybe he noticed something against Mississippi State and it just clicked for him. Got Rob S here saying Jack Pyburn as well. He deserves it. I owe him apologies because how I reacted to his play early in the season. And yeah, he really earned this Most Improved Player award. Next, we're going to go to the best transfer on the offensive side of the ball. We talked about our receivers earlier, so you know some of them are on here. And maybe one of them is the winner. The options for best offensive transfer that I had: Elijah Badger, Chimere Dike, and Brandon Crenshaw Davis. Can't remember. Brandon Crenshaw. I think you saw Crenshaw not start. He's played okay. So it really comes down to 2 here. DK and Badger, both the receiver transfers. You have them saying they're tied. I can see that. I went with Elijah Badger. I think we've seen more explosive plays from him. DK's been the more solid, steady hand, more consistent maybe. But the deep play from Badger, especially with DJ Lagway, I think he might surpass DK by the end of the season. And he's a bit above him in yards right now. I would like to see Badger try to, I don't know, finish those touchdowns on the big passes. I mean, they're pretty excusable. But maybe you'd like to see him get more touchdowns there. DK also has a punt return, which kind of makes it closer. Punt returns, which does make it a bit closer. But I did end up going with Elijah Badger. Now, on the opposite side of the ball, best defensive transfer. You had, after his great game against Kentucky, Jaquez Bridges. You have from South Carolina, Grayson Pup Howard. And the surprise of them all, from Northern Illinois, George Gums. This is probably the toughest one for me so far, because I really like what Gums has done for us, especially considering I did not see this happening at all When I saw he was starting, I remember a bunch of us were in a chat when it was announced. And we all were insanely surprised. Rob throwing some Slackman hasn't played, and Douglas. I don't want to hate on a player, so being sarcastic. Okay. I thought so, but I wanted to give it to Gums, but I think and Bridges, if he had played like this the entire season, he'd be a lot closer, if not winning the award, but he just hasn't. So it's got to go easily to Pup Howard. I mean, Grayson Pup Howard is arguably better than Shamar James. Shamar. And I was as high as anybody on Shamar James. Pup has been very consistent, not missing his angles. Great tackler in open space. Has brought a good bit of blitzing. And for a true sophomore, I think, has been as much as you can want from a linebacker. Hoping he stays next year if we fire the coach and stuff. Because he could be an all-SEC level linebacker. Shamar and Castell regressed. I wouldn't say Shamar has regressed. I'll say he hasn't really improved as much. He's also the leader of the defense. Can't put more weight on his shoulders. Having to make the calls and everything could make him start out of place. I talked about it earlier with the review of the Kentucky game. He made a bad play there, which gave up a first down. But I still think he's played a really solid this year. Now, the two most important awards. Best overall offensive player. This is a really tough one. I have 4 names. I have Elijah Badger. 1 best transfer already. I have Graham Mertz. Outside of that Miami game, I think Graham Mertz has played as good as he did last season. Also had some good runs, but he also missed that Kentucky game. I have Montrell Johnson. As much as people want to say play ball, Montrell had a crazy game against Tennessee. If Montrell doesn't get hurt, we beat Tennessee, in my opinion. We have DJ Lagway, one best freshman, one of the best freshman award, has been maybe the most explosive player on this entire team. And on the offensive line, we'll put Jake Slaughter. In pass protection, he's been elite all season. Run blocking a little iffy, but had a great run blocking game against Kentucky. I think it's hard to vote for the offensive lineman, but you got to give him some love. Austin Barber's been really solid all around too, but I put Slaughter on there. I still haven't even picked my winner for this award yet. I think I'm going to go Elijah Badger. I think had Lagway been starting the entire year, then, like with Ball earlier, maybe he'd be higher up. Can't forget, now he didn't get time to get a groove on against A&M. He also didn't really play amazing against them, while Badger's been more reliant on the QBs getting him the ball, so it's like his bad games are more excusable. So I'm going to go with Elijah Badger as the best offensive player. Again, Montrell Johnson, had he had played against Kentucky, had he had gotten 3 or a couple of touchdowns against Kentucky, I could have easily have given it to him. Now, maybe even a harder one. Best defensive player. Guys, I'm having a tough time here making this choice for this one. I tried to pick someone from each position group here. So on the defensive line, I have Cam Jackson. I think we haven't seen much. I don't think you've seen him make those insane plays, but I think that's kind of what you want from your nose tackle. Like, you don't really hear too much about crazy nose tackle making plays. And he's just been solid. Run defense. Run defense has been good. Not as much pass rush, but his run defense has been really good, man. Pup Howard, one best defensive transfer, has been an amazing linebacker. I also put Shamar James on there because I'm a big fan of Shamar. But I feel like he's kind of on there. And then you have Rob here, who has his easy pick, Jason Marshall. He's the last one on my list for who I'm considering. Jason Marshall Jr. has had an elite season. Had he have had this season last year, he wouldn't even be on this team. He'd be in a first-round draft pick. He'd be playing right now, probably, in the NFL. He did just get hurt, unfortunately, but this is the mid-season mark. We're not counting what's going to happen in the future. Give me Jason Marshall. Not going to let Pup get the clean sweep like Badger did on his awards. So I'm going to go Jason Marshall to get that best defensive player, locking up teams' wide receiver ones when we're not in coverage zone. Yeah, we're not in zone coverage. I'm going to do this at the end of the season, too, the midseason superlatives. We're going to compare to who won at the midseason and who won at the end of the season. Maybe Jack Pyburn continue to play great, and he could end up winning the best defensive player. Marshall hurt especially. Maybe Bridges will continue playing like that. Maybe Jaden Ball just starts outshining Montreal every single week. We're going to expand it. Maybe do like best running back or best skilled position player at the end of the season. But that's all the mid-season superlatives I have for y'all. Excuse me. The Gators do have a bye week this week. And you know what I will say? The Gators, I hate when we have bye weeks because I want to watch the Gators play every time. Every week. But we've had two pretty good weeks to have bye weeks on. We had the Georgia-Alabama game on our other bye week. Ended up being, people considered the game of the year probably. Really fun game. This week, you have what I think is going to be a really entertaining game between tied first place in the SEC and Texas A&M and LSU. Two teams who have started playing a lot better throughout the season. LSU destroying Arkansas in what everyone was calling not even a trap game, just Arkansas a good team, and maybe being able to take advantage of LSU, especially in Fayetteville. But LSU didn't. Mississippi State has looked better, and they did it to A&M. Looked better. Close game, one-score game in the fourth quarter. I'm going to pick LSU to win that one. But you also this weekend have some UFC events. So a UFC pay-per-view, man. It's just a really good week for Florida to have its bye. It's great for the team as well to warm up, get ready for Georgia. Can we actually pull off the second biggest upset of this season behind Vandy over Bama? If we pull the upset, I might do a live show in Jacksonville outside of my car. I think that would be really fun. I might be parking far away so we wouldn't have as much of the crowd. I can bring all my stuff with me. I have a good laptop for it. I think that would be super cool to do a live show there. If not, though, if I decide not to do the live show there, the live show will be about 3 hours after the game so I can drive back home. The live post-game show. There was no post-game show for this one because it was a 7:45 kick. I didn't get home until about 1 o'clock, and I was ready to sleep. My Jags finally got a win in the NFL in London. And though a bunch of Florida fans could probably relate to the Jags, not been a great season of football for us, but hey, a win's a win. Got to be happy. And let's end this off on a happy note, guys. So thank you for watching. Make sure you like, subscribe to the channel. I will see you guys next Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We will have a Georgia guest, maybe two. We will predict the game. Have a great week.